Hello, amazing parents and caretakers, and welcome to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. I'm your family empowerment coach, Celia Kibler. I'm a mom of a blended family of 5 kids. I'm a grandma of 9 kids, an author, a teacher, a speaker, and a consultant with over 40 years of training and real-life parenting experience. I'm here to offer you practical, doable tips, strategies, and techniques that will pump up your parenting skills and create peace, love, and laughter throughout your family. In addition, I'll be interviewing some great humans that are on a mission to make your life a better, happier, and healthier life. So let's not waste any time and get started with the next episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Thanks for listening. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Celia, your host, and welcome to another episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. You know how I'm always excited for my guests? Well, I'm super excited now because guess what? This is like my friend from junior high school. I'm pretty sure that's when we met. So many moons ago, too many moons to count, decades and decades. And we're both still alive. Yay for that. So joining me today is Dr. Jay LeBow, and he is a podiatrist, and he is the co-founder of JBRDS shoes, little kid shoes that are just, I'm telling you, like the cutest shoes, but not just cute and attractive, incredibly good for your child's feet. So I brought Dr. Jay here so that he can tell you all about these shoes and why good foot care is so important. So welcome, Dr. Jay, to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast.
Hi, Seal. Thanks for inviting me to speak to you and to meet your guests and to talk about JBRDS. Let me give you a little background about my history since grade school that we first met.
Since we graduated high school.
So yeah, that's right. So I am a podiatrist. I've had a varied career in my history. After getting out of podiatry school and moving back to Baltimore to join practice with my father, which lasted 6 months, so I'm a second generation podiatrist. And we lasted 6 months, but I went on my own after that. I developed a big practice. We had 4 doctors, 30 employees, multiple offices. We ran the Foot and Ankle Center at Mercy Hospital here in Baltimore. I became team podiatrist of the Baltimore Orioles early on in my career and was the team podiatrist for 30 years with Major League Baseball. And not only was with the Orioles, but I also treated all the visiting players when they played in town for their foot and ankle problems, and got to know a lot of players in Major League Baseball. And my career really migrated to sports medicine after probably the 25 years in practice, and took care of a lot of athletes that would travel into Baltimore, especially during the off season for reconstructive work and surgical corrections that needed to be done. I became very popular in that arena. Besides that, I lectured, I taught residents. I also still work for the FDA and do device approvals and clearances for the FDA, where they send me predicates and I look at all sorts of screws, plates, wheelchairs, lasers, all sorts of devices that they ask me to review and get my opinion on. So anyway, I was sitting in my office doing an FDA review, and I decided, and my grandson, who was a little over 1, came up to my home office. It was before COVID. And I had been working at Under Armour also in their innovation lab because I felt shoes had a big influence on foot health and it had been missed in the arena of foot health. So I had been fixing feet 1 foot at a time, 1 operating room at a time, 1 problem at a time for years. So I would see the patient, diagnose what they need to be done, take them to the OR and fix it. And I thought that it could be something more global to help a broader range of the population. And that's when I got involved in Under Armour in the innovation lab and tried to develop shoes with them to help the public. anyway, after being a little bit and learning about the shoe business and how shoes were developed and built, um, my grandson came up, as I said, and he came to visit me. Hi, Pop, how you doing? And I'm looking at the shoes he's wearing, and I start telling my daughter, "What kind of shoes do you have on Henry? This is nuts. What do you put them in there?" I think they were like mini Nikes or mini something else that they thought were cute, and I started to do digging in and doing some research on really what little kids need to wear as they're starting to toddler along and starting to develop, and realized and learned very quickly that anatomically, the foot as a child is not an adult foot. So there's an ontogeny that occurs. There's a migration that occurs from a newborn foot. As you look at your little kid's foot, it doesn't look like your foot. It's fatty, it's flat, it's stubby. It doesn't look like an adult foot. And there's a migration that foot takes, to make it simple, all through about age 8 to get to the basic structure of an adult foot. At age 8, the structure's there. It just has to grow bigger and the bones have to ossify and grow stronger. But during this migration, there could be shoes that are built to support that developing foot at different stages of this migration, from beginning to stand and pulling up and bearing weight at age roughly about 9 months of age, when they start to hold on and bear weight, all the way through age 8. And also we could mirror that migration of development with the activity requirements of each stage of development. A young 1-year-old is not doing the same thing as a 3-year-old, is not doing the same activities as a 5 or an 8-year-old. So there's activity requirements and also developmental requirements. So we realized that the developing foot at 1 year of age, when you start to bear weight and take those first steps, doesn't have an arch. There is no medial arch that an adult foot has. There's no worry about supination and pronation. Kids at 1 year of age are traditionally bow-legged. Their support structure is built by God on the outside of their foot. The bony structure is on the outside of their foot, not on the inside of their foot, because they're bow-legged, and they need that outside support structure, that bony structure, to allow the tendons in their legs to function properly. If that outside structure, especially the cuboid bone, which is on the outside of the foot, between the heel and the midfoot, if that cuboid bone's not there, then the peroneus longus, which is a muscle in your leg, doesn't have a fulcrum to pull and offer that stability for a kid to stand and walk. You need that bone. So I'm like looking at this and I'm going, when does the cuboid show up? Surprisingly, the cuboid shows up, goes from a cartilaginous kind of non-bony structure to a bony structure at 1 year of age. Isn't that funny? At 1 year of age, the cuboid shows up. You need the cuboid for the peroneus longus to work. Shows up at 1 year of age. And when do kids start walking? About 1 year of age. So the more I dug into this, the more I realized that the activity that kids do and the support structure they need is happening during this progression. So we set out to build a pair of shoes that supports these kids from 9 months to 8 years, with shoes that support the structural framework of the foot, this lateral column for the 1 year old, with the need for activity. The activity of a 1 year old is a toddler. They don't stand and lift their foot and take the next step. If you watch them, they slide their feet more than they lift. So when these 1 year old kids, or you give them a mini pair of Nikes or some other shoes that have a rubber sole, for an example, the soles are so grippy that if you ever watch the 1 year old, they put the shoes on them, and what do? They trip forward. They fall forward because they're not lifting their feet, they're sliding. So we made our shoes with a suede sole, so it has some grip, but it also slides. So when they put on our shoes, they don't fall forward and trip. They feel, when they put on our shoes, because their structure that supports this lateral column that I talked about before in the cuboid, their structure that supports that structure. So our kids have put on, and let me give you the big insight when I was developing these shoes. I forgot about it. So a
Sorry.
big like light bulb really went off. I had all this that I just talked about. I had all this in my mind. I knew what I wanted to build. I knew what I needed to support for these kids. I had an epiphany that these kids are in the wrong shoes, that
Right.
I could really do something for the broader population and help kids in a way that's never ever been offered to them before. So we call a company called Jones and Vining. Jones and Vining is a company that builds lasts. Lasts are the framework that all shoes are built on. Jones and Vining is the last maker for Under Armour and Nike and Stride Rite and Adidas. They're the national company. They're out of Boston, Massachusetts. They have factories all over the world, and they build lasts for every factory that's making shoes. Basically, every factory is making shoes. I mean, they are the brand. So I called the guy up that had been working on Under Armour, and I said, I need a 1-year-old last. I'm designing a shoe. And he laughed and he said, sure, what last do you need? Because every company has their own last. So I said, well, send me a Stride Rite. So he said, okay. I figure Stride Rite's been around a bazillion years.
And is known for supposedly being a great shoe for kids.
Sends me a Stride Rite last. This is what a last looks like. I know your viewers can't see it, but I'm showing Celia. It's just a mold.
A mold
so
of a
he
shoe.
Sends me a last, and I got it and called him up, and I said, this looks like a miniature adult foot. And he said, that's what it is. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, that's what all the companies do. They take adult feet and shrink them down to a 1-year-old size 4, and they build the shoe on that. I said, but a 1-year-old foot doesn't look like that. That's what they all do. So at that point, my granddaughter Ruby was 1 year of age. I took a plaster of Paris impression of her foot, and I modified.
How'd she like that?
And she was a real trooper. Let's put it that way. She was a real trooper.
What is Grandpa doing?
And we didn't want it to be her foot, but I made it more generic. I made it a little thicker, a little wider, a little narrower, blah, blah, blah. I modified the last to make it a more generic shape, but that became our 1-year-old last. So we designed the shoe around the shape of a 1-year-old foot, not
what an adult concept
foot shrinking down. and we see that the kids that wear our shoes, where a lot of kids you're aware of, they put on these shoes and they try to pull them off all the time. The analogy would be if you put your left shoe on your right foot, it would feel uncomfortable, and you go, this is uncomfortable, and try to take it off. Kids can't verbalize that, so all they do is they're trying to rip it off because it doesn't feel right. They put on our shoes and they don't try to rip them off. They don't pull them off. They put them on, and I think inherently they feel comfortable because it's the shape of their foot. It's not a left one or right. It's the shape of their foot. Inherently, they start to bear weight in our shoes, and I think that they realize that there's structure there that's supporting what they're trying to achieve. It's not an orthopedic shoe. It's just adding a little bit of structure to what they need, and they feel that stability, and I think they let go and start toddling earlier than they would because they feel like they have that extra little bit that they didn't have before. Barefootedness is great for kids before they start bearing weight and standing and walking, but when they stand and walk, they should have protection. They shouldn't, because kids can walk over something, foreign bodies. They need a little bit of protection. They don't need a structure like an adult shoe, but they need structure that's necessary for their foot and their activity at that time of development. We made the shoes with zero slope, and we can get a little bit more technical about that. By the way, I forgot to mention, if anybody listening to this wants to reach out to me for further questions or they don't understand, my email is drjay, J-A-Y, JBRDS.com.
And that's the website for the shoes, jbirds.com.
Well, the website for the shoes is jbrds.com.
Hey, parents, it's Celia. Just want to take a break from this podcast for a moment. As parents, we all have those moments. The pressure builds up, the noise gets too much, and before we know it, we're raising our voices higher than we ever intended. But what if there was a better way? Introducing 21 Days to Stop Yelling at Your Kids, a revolutionary program designed to help you communicate with your children without yelling. Imagine a home filled with understanding and respect, where your words have impact without the need to raise your voice. Created through my over 40 years of experience, this course offers you practical, easy to implement strategies that work in real life. You'll learn through interactive lessons, engaging exercises, and a supportive community. No judgments, just guidance. Because being a parent doesn't have to mean you're perfect. It's about growing and it's about becoming intentional. In just 21 days, life will be calmer and more harmonious. What if you don't get the course? Where will you be in 21 days? Still feeling like a bad parent? I encourage you to join the millions of parents that I have helped who have found a new path to communication and connection. Visit quityelling.com to enroll in the 21 Days to Stop Yelling course today. And for our podcast listeners, use the code PODCAST for a 60% discount. Quityelling.com, because love speaks so much louder than yelling. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side. You know, I find it so interesting because in so much of life, people view children as little people, as like you're a grown up, but you're just a smaller grown up. Like they don't understand that children are not grown ups. They are not grown ups in smaller bodies in any way, not by their brain, evidently not by their feet either. And we're so used to making things, and they're cute. I mean, everybody goes into a shoe store and they see the little Nikes or they see, little Adidases, and they're like big people shoes, just like you said, made little, and they're adorable. And you don't think, you're like, oh, well, Nike makes a nice shoe, so I'll get a Nike for my child, not thinking, and it's super cute because it's very little. And you're not thinking about the fact that it's a whole different ball game. And it's so awesome that you recognize that. And another thing, because I teach kids fitness and I've been teaching it for over 40 years, you see kids in Crocs all the time. And I remember when Crocs first came out, they were a garden shoe for gardening. And then they became this whole line of shoes. And I'm like, these cannot be good for feet. There's just nothing supportive. And literally in my camps and classes, I state you cannot wear sandals or Crocs because they're not supportive.
They're not good. So one of our ads, Celia, is ditch the Croc, join our flock.
Oh, I love that ad. That's so great.
That's one of our. So the one thing else I want your listeners to, even if they don't use Jaybird shoes and they're just looking for shoes for the kids, in my career, I fixed bunions and hammer toes and treated plantar fasciitis and heel spurs for a zillion years. About 10, maybe 12 years ago now, we realized that bunions and hammer toes are caused by overpronation. The primary deforming force in overpronation is a tight Achilles tendon. The Achilles being tight and pulling causes overpronation. And many times when we fix the bunion, we turn the patient over on the operating room table and lengthen their Achilles tendon. If it was tight. We do a tendon Achilles lengthening to try to remove that deforming force. If you look at kids' shoes, many kids' shoes are pitched. They're higher in the heel, they have a pitch to them, and lower in the narrower in the forefoot. They are causing, from day one, a tightening of the Achilles tendon in kids, especially people wear anything with a higher heel, especially, every woman knows that they wear high heels all the time, their Achilles become tighter versus the flat shoes. So if nothing else you gain from this for the benefit of your children, try to wear shoes that for the kids with a zero slope. You want them flat. Our shoes are zero slope, but you want to wear the shoes with a zero slope. Anything that pitches the kid forward, has a higher heel, is going to endemically cause a tightening of the Achilles. And as they age, you're setting them up. You're setting your child up for overpronation and potential development of all these foot problems that I treated for many years. Many of these foot problems are genetic. They're inherited. You have a predisposition to develop those deformities. But part of that is that you are overpronating because we've been in the United States wearing shoes that have a pitched heel. The running shoes have a pitched heel and a thicker sole because at heel strike they want to absorb shock and have some type of cushioning effect as your foot's coming down to absorb shock. But little kids don't need that shock absorption property. They just need a flat shoe. So I hope the listeners, irregardless of Jaybirds, I think the most important thing is that they wear a zero slope shoe.
Yeah. And we know as adults, especially women, there's so many foot problems because they wear so many heels. Mm-hmm. Heels themselves, I can't wear them. I haven't been able to wear a heel for like forever. But they cause so many, problems, and it just makes so much sense. And a kid's shoe needs to, just when I'm with toddlers teaching them in my fitness classes, they don't fit right. They're loose. They're, and none of that can be good for a developing foot. Everything about a child is growing all the time. And so it is pretty important that you make sure that what they're wearing, what they're eating, all of the aspects of becoming a healthy human is beneficial to their growth, because it will cause problems as they go into the future.
Down the road, yeah. If you want to everybody wants to raise a good kid that's polite, well-mannered, smart, athletic. You get them coaching for sports and all sorts of, to make them better athletes and perform better, and reading coaches, but nobody's really looking at the development of their feet. And then later on in life, they end up with foot problems that I treated for years. We did an interview with a local news station here in Baltimore, and the guy that was doing the interview turned to me and he said, "Why hasn't anybody done this before?" And I said, "I really don't know. I think it's been an afterthought. I just think people the shoe companies, all they care about is selling shoes. They don't care what's good for you. They just care about selling shoes. And parents, they like Crocs because they're easy to get on, easy to get off. Right. They're simple. We try to make our shoes relatively easy to get on and off. And it's a sock shoe combination, so that you can wear a thin sock, but you don't need to. So it makes it.
And Velcro closure. It opens and closes.
Velcro closure, and just pull them on, pull them off.
And you said it goes from 9 months to 8 years. So
right now we have we have stand to walk. So stand to walk is from 9 months to 18 months. That's our launch shoe. That's what's out now. We've sold a little over 5,500 pairs of shoes so far. And it's online mostly. We're going to be showing up in some retail stores shortly, but right now it's online. You go to our website. We have a measuring guide on our website that you print out and make sure the printing is the print from the printer is accurate to what we need by using a credit card to make sure the credit card's fitting in the box that we created. It's not being shrunk or enlarged by your printer. And then we use the measuring guide to measure what size shoes you should buy for your child. And we have bundles. So people that want to buy a 3, 4, and 5, or 4, 5, and 6 can get a discount by buying bundles, 2 pair, 3 pair discounts.
Right. For people that have multiple kids.
Or they just want to have the shoes because kids' feet grow rather quickly. And unlike adults, where a child's going to say, "Oh, my shoes are tighter," or "My toes hitting the end," parents got to recognize when it's time to get the next pair of shoes, and they're going to be doing it constantly. The shoes, the kids grow pretty rapidly through these years.
So in a shoe like yours, and guys, go to jbirds.com, JB, B like boy, RD like dog, S like Sam.com. That's where you're going to find the shoes, jbirds.com. For shoes like yours that are soft, when does a parent determine that the shoe is getting too small? Like hard shoes, you always do that like thumb thing, like thumb space.
Half a thumb at the end of the shoe. Yeah, that's
Same
pretty
thing.
typical. Same thing.
Same
Yeah,
thing.
you can feel at the end of our shoes. We have, it's a rubber cage that protects the toe with a toe bumper to protect the toes, but you can still feel where the toes are at, and parents have to be aware of sizing. They have to really pay attention. It happens pretty quickly. It's, you don't want to take your kids the shoes off and see that your little one has a blister on the end of their toe,
right?
Or their toe is real red, or their nail is bloody because the nail is pushed up against the end of the shoe and has created some blood underneath of it by jamming at the end of the shoe. Don't wait for all these observable signs. Kind of check them out. Once every couple of weeks, bend down and have your child stand and just feel the end of the shoe and see where we're at. You'll kind of know.
And most little kids of that age, 8 months and 18 months, you're usually putting on their shoes. You're Velcro. So while you're putting them on, feel your child's foot and make sure it's fitting correctly, and it's not too snug. Standing. While they're standing. While they're standing.
While they're standing.
Sitting is different. It's like putting on jeans. Standing. And so I'm going to assume your shoes come in fun colors.
We've sold out of a lot of the colors. We're down to 3 colors right now that are pretty generic, neutrals. But we're coming out with a whole slew of new colors in the next several months, and we're there's a rhythm to ordering and getting the factory to manufacture shoes and having shoes on hand. There's a rhythm that as a young company, we're just starting to get into that rhythm. We launched with these shoes in June of 22. So we're about a year and a half into it now.
Wow.
A little over a year and a half into it.
Very exciting. Very exciting. And all your grandchildren wear your shoes?
They did. Unfortunately, they outgrown.
Oh, they outgrow them.
But
the little model one, did she get to wear them?
They all got to. If they hadn't outgrown them, if they were in the right age group, of course they wore them. Absolutely. They got free pairs of shoes. That was the good part.
It's a good deal. It's a good deal, and good shoes too. Do you plan on making shoes for older kids? Like, is this going to continue up? Or are you going to eventually end at some age?
Anatomically, at age 8, it's pretty much the foot has developed, like I said, and it just needs to get bigger and stronger.
But it's basically like an adult foot.
Developmentally, it's there. Our company's talked about all sorts of things. We've talked about making our shoes not just with a sock, but making our shoes with fleece. Excuse me. With fleeces, making because I worked in baseball, I've had a passion for making baseball shoes, baseball cleats. I have ideas about that.
Oh, super fun, because nothing's better than watching little kids play baseball.
Jaybird's golf shoes. I got ideas about what kids need to play golf. Kids need to play baseball versus adults need to play. What their foot requirements are. So we have all sorts of ideas. We have all sorts of ideas about other Jaybird branded products. So the brand could expand beyond shoes into all sorts of Jaybird's branded products.
I love your logo.
Good for kids that have that kid focused. What do they need versus what It's just out there.
Right. Instead of just miniaturizing adult products, which
Yeah.
they love to do. So, well, this is so, it's, to me, it's exciting because I love kids and my world is kids. And what we can do to help kids grow healthier and stronger and better. We have the science, we have the technology, we can build, I feel like the $6 million man, which some of you probably don't even remember. But, you know, we can make these shoes. So let's make them, and parents, get them. Don't just stick your child's feet in Crocs. Sorry, Crocs. You know, I'm not like slamming Crocs, but that type of shoe is so, for a little foot, is not helpful. It's not helpful for them in school. If you're sending them to school in Crocs, sending them to camp in Crocs, they fall off, their feet roll, they fall over. It's all kind of drama. So get them out of the sock, get them out of the Crocs, guys. Just heads up. But put them into Jaybirds. Okay. So everybody buy a pair of Jaybirds today. Go to jaybirds.com. Well, thank you, Jay. It's so nice catching up with you and learning about these shoes. And I really wanted to share them with my audience because I think they're the cutest and they're great. They're like not just cute, they're really healthy. So if you had to share with a parent, being a doctor and a podiatrist and knowing all about feet, something that they could do or they should remember about their children and their growing children, what piece of advice would you give them?
For normal development, I go back and would say to be observant of your child's foot, to inspect, to look between their toes, you know, not take it just for granted as another appendage. Be observant, check their shoe size, look at their skin. If something doesn't look right, have the pediatrician look at it. If the pediatrician's unsure, you know, take them to a pediatric podiatrist or a dermatologist. You know, have not just, you know, to be a little bit observant about foot health. It's kind of like sidetracked. It's kind of like, oh, it's going to happen. But in adult life, a lot of the problems that I treated one operating room at a time I really believe can be curtailed if this generation of parents pays a little bit more attention and gives our kids a better foundation to walk, stand, play, run, and do the activities that they want to do. You know,
That's great
my
advice.
advice.
Great advice. And if you're noticing like an issue with your child's gait, the way they're walking, the way they're moving, often that has to do with their feet. It may have to do with other things. I have scoliosis, so you know that. And but like their feet may have a lot to do with it, the way they're rolling, standing, whatever.
No, absolutely. I mean, if a child is in towing or out towing, when you start to see them begin to walk, have somebody look at it. I mean, a lot of the in towing and out towing will self-reduce, but it may not. It may be caused by a rotational deformity higher up in their tibia, and it may need to be corrected. I can't tell you how many corrections I did just to get, you know, the feet to go straight and to walk straight. It's a casting procedure. It is uncomfortable, but I'm not going to get into what needs to be done. I'm just going to get into be observant and not, you know, bury your head in the sand and hope it goes away.
Right.
We don't want to be an ostrich. We want to be, you know, observant and help our kids from their feet all the way up to the top of their heads.
Be aware, guys. Be aware of what's going on with your kids, you know, and don't just automatically think everything. A lot of things do go away. But
Absolutely.
if you're concerned, if you feel in your heart that something here is not right, go get it checked out. Doesn't hurt to ask. You know, it doesn't hurt to consult with somebody, and you can probably start with your pediatrician if you don't know who to go to. They're going to advise whether it needs to go forward.
I can't tell you how many of those kids that I treated for in-towing, especially for internal tibial torsion, came in because the grandparents push their kids, their children, to bring their grandchildren in to have it looked at. It wasn't their parents; it was it was always the grandparents.
See how wise we are. We know, guys.
We're, that's
We're
right.
old, but with age comes wisdom.
That's absolutely. So hopefully Jaybirds can help a lot of kids in a way that's never been offered before, and create a generation of healthier foot health that's never been there before. So we're hopeful. We're creating something that's just not been done. For whatever reason, it's not been done.
Yeah, I don't know. And it sounds like something that's a no-brainer for most parents to address and get, a pair of. And I'm seriously grateful that you, all of a sudden it like clicked. That little granddaughter of yours walked in and you're like, what's this child wearing? And because no one does think of that. They just think, let's buy a cute little pair of shoes.
Oh, I totally missed it on my own kids. Totally. I was so busy building a career and taking care of everybody else that I wasn't around or pay attention to my own kids. So luckily I realized this with my grandchildren.
Yeah. We always thought there was like one store to go to for little kid shoes, and they were the right shoes. And now they're not the right shoes. So thank you, Jay, for bringing this to the world. Dr.
My
Jay.
pleasure.
And go to jbirds.com. Again, JB like boy, RD like dog, S like Sam, jbirds.com. It'll be in the show notes. And do yourself a favor, do your children a favor, because they'll really love wearing shoes. Nobody wants to wear shoes that are uncomfortable. And check out his website and get yourself a pair of shoes. Makes great gifts for holidays and birthdays. So don't forget that too.
If you do go to the website, on the website, you'll see a picture of a little boy or a little girl with an arrow. It's a 1-minute video. If you take the 1 minute and play the video, you'll understand, and it'll visually show you why we did what we're doing. And there's also literally x-rays on the website that will show you a 1-year-old x-ray versus an adult x-ray. And you can see the structural difference between the 2 feet, and you'll clearly see why we're doing what we're doing and why we've done what we've done.
That's great. It'll probably blow your mind to see the difference, because we always think feet are feet.
It's eye-opening. When you visually see what's going
on. I'm sure you will. I'm going to go just to watch that video. Well, Jay, it's been a pleasure seeing you after all these years. I mean, we see each other, but we don't see each other see each other. And
we have a 50-year high school reunion coming up. That's what I hear.
50 years, guys. We're old. 50 years. That means it's how many years since college? That's like 50 years. 50. So needless to say, we're all over 50.
That's right.
I know. We're old. But once again, we are wise. So use our wisdom. And thank you for joining me, Jay. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as well. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Very good to see you.
And remember, anybody wants to reach out to me, I gave my email, so please reach out.
Thank you for that. Thank you for listening to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. If this episode was helpful to you, please share it with a friend and leave us a review that will help others. Wonder why kids don't come with a manual? Well, wonder no more, because I wrote you one, and it's just won a wonderful Mom's Choice Award. Go to celiasbooks.com and buy your copy of Raising Happy Toddlers, as well as my children's books. I appreciate you being part of my mission to help 10 million parents stop yelling at their kids. Please be intentional and hug on those kids of yours. See you at the next episode.